Hello dear students, welcome to the next lecture on measurements and instrumentation. Today we will be discussing about errors in CT and PT. So before moving to the errors, it will be ideal to look at the working of the transformer and understand the basic concepts so that it will be beneficial for you to understand the errors in CT as well as PT. Now this is the general transformer that you have. So this is the core of the transformer, and you have primary and secondary windings. You are applying a voltage at the primary side, and you will be getting an output voltage at the secondary side, and you have a primary current and secondary current flowing. You have NP number of turns in the primary, and you have NS number of turns in the secondary of the winding, and you can see that the transformer is having a constant flux setup throughout its operation, whether it is even when the load is varying, even when the load current is varying, the flux will not change. It is having a constant value. So it is one of the most beautiful properties of the transformer, that it is able to maintain the flux constant even if the current is changing. Now since the flux is remaining constant, we are making use of that property to explain rest of the working of the transformer. So before moving on to the working, we'll just compare between ideal transformer and a practical transformer while used as a CT or a PT. So we have already seen that you can write the relationship between voltage and the number of turns. Vp by Vs is equal to Np by Ns. In case of an ideal transformer, this equation is valid. But for a practical transformer while used as a CT or a PT, this equation is not valid. Again, in case of a current transformer, so this is for a potential transformer, and for a CT, your Is by Ip is equal to Ns by Np. Sorry, this is Np by Ns. Np by Ns. Okay, so this equation is valid for an ideal transformer, but this is not valid for a practical transformer. Now what happens is that since this ratio may not be valid for a practical current transformer and or a potential transformer, it introduces some errors while we do the calculation, as well as we use it in a practical case. So we are going to see what are those errors that happens due to this condition. This is one of the conditions that we are going to see. Now we'll look at the circuit of an ideal transformer on no load. Now what do you mean by an ideal transformer? So an ideal transformer is something, transformer which has no losses, and it is operating at no load. No load in the sense you are not connecting any load. Once you connect a load to this secondary side, some load current flows, but you are not connecting any load here. You are keeping your secondary open, and you are considering that you have no losses in the system. So Vp is the source voltage at the primary side. Ep is the EMF induced in the primary winding. So we know that we have already learned how an inductor works. Once you have a voltage applied, an AC voltage applied across the inductor, you will have an induced EMF. EMF induced in the this particular inductor. So that voltage is known as the induced EMF. So this is the EMF induced in the primary winding, and since the flux will be linking with the secondary winding, some EMF will be induced in the secondary winding also. So you have some flux flowing in the core, and you have some EMF induced in the secondary winding also. Now Ip is the primary current in the primary winding. So once it is connected, some current will be flowing. Now you should be thinking that, or you should be understanding that even if your load is not connected, you will have some current flowing. I will tell you why this current will be flowing, because you will have some current, small amount of current flowing, which will be used for some purpose. And Np is a number of turns, and Ns is a number of turns of the secondary winding, and Np for primary winding. Now we'll come to this magnetizing component a little later. Now what happens? We are applying a voltage Vp. Okay. Now voltage Vp is being applied, and this voltage Vp causes some flux to be induced in this or voltage Vp makes some current Ip flowing, and this Ip will be causing some flux to be created in the core. And we are assuming here that we have an air core structure. The core is air, so we are neglecting losses in the core. So since we are neglecting the losses, we have no losses in the core. Even the core we are considering it as air core. So normally we have iron core, so we are considering, for the moment we are considering it as an air core, so we have no losses. So once we apply the voltage, some flux will be produced, and the flux will be lagging behind the voltage by 90 degrees. So this concept you know, because you have a flux created which is lagging the induced voltage or the voltage by 90 degree. Now once the flux is produced, your some flux will be produced due to some current that is flowing in the winding. So you will have some current flowing in the winding. So we have already said that this is equal to the primary current, but we call that particular current which produces a flux as a magnetizing component, which produces some magnetization effect in the transformer. So such a flux is known as a magnetizing component of the primary current, or it is known as Im. So in this case, Im is equal to Ip. Whatever the primary current that is being supplied from the source is used for energizing the core, and hence this Ip is equal to Im. Now these two magnitudes are equal. Now what happens once a flux sets up in the core, whatever, if it is air core, once a flux is set up in that region, you will have some EMF induced in the windings. The flux will be linking with both the primary and the secondary winding, just like we have seen in the figure. It will be linking with both the windings, and you will have some EMF induced in both the windings. So that those values are given by EP and ES. Now, and you can see that EP and ES will be lagging behind your flux phi by 90 degree. So this flux will be lagging the input voltage, source voltage, by 90 degree, and the induced voltages will be lagging behind the flux by 90 degree. This much concept is very known to you. Now what happens? Now if you take the instantaneous values of Vp and Ep, suppose at any instant this Vp is positive and it is like this, Ep also will be positive and negative. It also has such a polarity. So once you take a KVL, in this loop, you will get that Vp is equal to minus Ep. So the magnitude is same. You have no losses, you have no drop in the system. Vp, the magnitudes are same, only thing is that the instantaneous polarities are reversed. So you will get Ep, so Vp can be termed as minus Ep. So that's how you reverse the value of Ep to the top. You can say that Vp is equal to minus Ep. Now we move on to the next case where you have an practical transformer. In a practical transformer we have iron core. So we have two parallel lines marked here which indicates that the transformer is having a core which is made up of iron. Now what happens? Once iron core is available, obviously you will have some losses in the iron. So generally the two losses that occurs in a magnetized iron structure are eddy current loss and hysteresis loss. Okay, so you'll have these two losses in the iron core. So you have to consider the losses also. So what you need to do is that there will be some current that is flowing in order to compensate this loss, or some energy being supplied from the source to meet these losses. Still your load is not connected, you are having a no load condition, but some extra energy will be required to compensate these losses, or rather some extra energy will be supplied from the source to compensate these losses that happens in the core. Now what we do is that we mark this or we associate this losses to another component which is known as IC. IC is given as core loss component. Okay, and this IC and IM, we already know that it's a magnetizing component and it is lagging behind the applied voltage by 90 degree. And IC, since it is a wattful component, it is a actual power that is dissipated. It's a wattful component. It will be in phase with the applied voltage. It will be in phase with the voltage that is being applied. So what happens is that we are representing the core loss component with a resistor. Okay, it will be in phase with the voltage, and the magnetizing component will be lagging behind the voltage by 90 degrees. So you are representing it with an inductor, Xm. So Xm is the magnetizing component, inductance corresponding to magnetizing component, and RC is the resistance corresponding to the core loss component, in order to indicate some losses. So once the current flows through IC is the core loss component, IC flows through RC, you will have IC squared RC loss happening in this particular component, and that corresponds to the core loss that happens. The core loss will be comprising of both eddy current loss and the hysteresis loss. Now we'll come to the this phasor diagram. Here you can see that I0, you'll have some I0 current flowing here. You'll have some IP, okay, IP flowing here. Okay, now again this IP is flowing here, so IP will be used now. The IP will be used for two purposes: one, to magnetize the core; other, to support the core losses that happens in the system. So you can say that your I0 is the exciting current of the transformer, or the no load current of the transformer, which is again equal to the primary current IP. So IP is composed, it can be resolved into two components, IC and IM. IC will be in phase with VP and IM will be in phase with the flux phi. So the equivalent circuit can be represented like this. This is the practical case, and this is the equivalent circuit of the transformer, practical transformer on no load, where both core loss component as well as the magnetizing components are shown by RC and Xm respectively. Okay, and all other explanations remain the same. Only thing is that you have added some new component IC. So what happens is that once the IC component comes, your I0, the angle between I0 and phi becomes some angle phi 0. So you'll have some angle phi 0 here. Now from in the next figure, I will not be showing IC and IM, because already it is known to you that I0 can be resolved into two components. So I will be simply showing I0 only. So I0 is shown here without its individual components. Now we'll move to the exact equivalent circuit of the transformer, where we need to include the winding resistances as well as reactances. So we know we have two set of windings, one primary winding and a secondary winding. So you have to include that resistance as well as reactance of the primary winding here, because it is inductive in nature. So you'll have both resistance and inductance elements to be represented in the equivalent circuit. So this part indicates the primary winding, and this RS and XS represents the secondary winding. Okay, so RP plus JXP is the leakage impedance of the primary winding. It is termed as a leakage impedance, and RS plus JXS is the leakage impedance of the secondary winding. Now these are the two additions that we make, and again what we do is that we have some load connected. Some load also is connected, so that some secondary current is flowing. Okay, so in the earlier case we had no load. Now here we are connecting a load, so that we have some IS flowing in the system. The load can be of any nature: inductive, capacitive, or even purely resistive in nature. Now we'll write the equations at this primary side. Okay, so once you write the equations, what you will get? I can write, so EP is the voltage developed at this point, EP. So I can write Vp is equal to minus EP plus IP into Rp plus JXP, and towards the secondary side I can write ES is equal to Vs plus Is into Rs plus JXS. That is, Vp is a higher voltage. Once you have some drop here, you will get EP. Similarly, ES will be the higher value, and ES minus the drop gives Vs. So that's the concept that you need to understand. So you'll have some drop here. So once you reduce the drop, you will get the this term. So here you have a voltage drop towards this side. Again you have a voltage drop towards this side. So ultimately you will have some voltage drop from Vp to Vs. So some voltage drop occurs within the transformer. Some reduction in voltage will be there. Now we'll come to the phasor diagram. So you need to understand the phasor diagram very clearly. Now how can you represent this phasor diagram? We'll start from the secondary side because we already have I0 current flowing, that you know. It is composed of IC and IM. Now how the transformer works actually. Once the load is connected, the secondary current starts flowing, or rather the load draws some current from the transformer. Now once the current is drawn from the transformer, what happens? Once the secondary current starts flowing in the secondary winding, you will have some flux generated in the winding. Obviously some flux will be generated in the winding. Now once the flux is generated in the winding, that flux will be linking with the primary winding. Already you have some flux phi 0, some flux phi is there, or rather phi is there, which is set up to magnetize the core. Entire core is being magnetized already. Now once an extra secondary current flows due to the connection of the load, some extra flux will be flowing, and that flux will be linking with the primary, and that flux causes some current to be some extra flux to be produced in order to oppose this initial flux. That is, you will have some flux phi s created, which will be flowing in this core, and you have some phi p created in order to oppose this phi s due to is. Why should you oppose this phi s? Because the principle is that your flux remains constant in the transformer. Transformer is a constant flux device. So in order to maintain the flux constant, whenever there is an increase in flux in the secondary due to secondary current, some extra flux will be produced in order to negate that. So in order to produce the flux, obviously you should have some extra current flowing in the primary of the transformer. So that's how any change in the secondary current will be reflected towards the primary side. I'll just explain once again. Once you have a secondary current flowing, some flux phi s will be produced, and this phi s will be set up in the will be set up in this core, and this there will be some flux phi p produced by the primary winding in order to oppose a phi s, or the flux due to secondary winding, in order to keep the flux constant inside the core. Now if a flux phi p is produced, obviously it cannot be produced simply. Some current has to flow, so that current will be flowing in the primary winding, and that current will be drawn from the source. So once you need to supply current to the load, ultimately some current will be drawn from the source, and here you will have some interaction between the flux which helps to do that. So that's how the transformer works. Now depending on the in order to keep this EP and ES in this position, okay, in order to keep this EP and ES in the vertical position, what I have done is that I have taken IS towards this side, or rather you can say that this IS will be lagging behind this EP by some angle phi. Okay, say some angle, say I'll take it as theta. Okay, some angle theta. And how do you what is the value of this theta? This theta will be depending on the impedance of this winding, RS and XS. Okay, so this theta will be tan inverse XS by R, tan inverse XS by R. So that will be the value of theta. Tan inverse of XS by R. So because of the secondary winding, the current will be displaced by an angle theta. Okay, and if your load is resistive, I am assuming that your load is resistive. If the load is resistive in nature, what happens? Your IS and VS are in phase. You have no phase difference between IS and VS. Once the load is inductive or capacitive, there will be still a phase difference coming. So for the time being, I am assuming that IS and VS are in phase because your load is resistive. So the relationship between voltage and current at the load is with zero phase difference. So IS and VS are in phase. Now the drop IS-RS will be in phase with IS because RS will not produce any appreciable phase shift. there is no phase shift due to RS. So IS and RS will be in phase with IS, and XS will be producing a phase shift, producing a component which is shifted by 90 degrees. So IS XS will be in this direction. So ultimately this particular equation is satisfied here. ES equal to VS plus IS RS plus J IS XS. Okay, once again ES is equal to VS plus IS RS plus J IS XS. So what you will get? This triangle is solved. Now what happens? Now we need to move to the primary side. Now IS is here. As I have already told you, once the secondary current flows, some flux phi p will be produced in order to oppose phi s due to secondary current, and some IP, for that some IP has to flow. So this current that is now newly generated from or drawn from the source will be opposing this IS, then only the flux will be opposing each other. So what happens? This IP dash, I am calling this as the IP dash. This IP dash is to neutralize IS. But because of the turns ratio, IP dash will be much higher than IS. Okay, IP dash will be much higher than IS. Okay, you can assume it like that, and IP dash will be opposing it like this. Now at this node, I am applying KCL. When I apply KCL at this node, what I will get? IP equal to I0 plus IP dash. So IP will be a phasor sum of IP dash and I0. So this is the IP that you get. Okay, so once you get the IP, again we know we need to now establish this particular equation through phasor diagram. Vp is equal to minus EP plus IP into RP plus JXP. So this is minus EP, IP RP will be IP dash. This is IP dash RP, and this is IP. Yes, IP only. So IP will be in phase with this. It has to be slightly like this. IP will be in phase with IP RP will be in phase with IP, and IP XP will be lagging behind IP by 90 degree. Okay, due to this XP component. So ultimately you will get, what you will get? Minus EP plus IP RP plus J IP XP equal to VP. So your VP is solved. So this particular equation is also being introduced into this phasor diagram. So this is how the exact phasor diagram can be drawn for a resistive load. Now if your power factor varies, your phasor diagram also will vary accordingly. Now we'll move to CTs. So in a practical CT, what happens? You apply a voltage source, you have some high current flowing, and you are connecting some ammeter here. So we are simply using the same transformer here in order to represent CT. Same transformer here. Instead of load, you are using an ammeter. So this ammeter, this load that we use as for the CT is generally termed as burden of CT, or simply load. Load is otherwise called as the burden of the CT. So that is an ammeter that is connected at the secondary side. Okay, now we are considering a practical CT with the nominal turns ratio of Ns by Np is equal to K. What is meant by nominal turns ratio? Nominal turns ratio is simply the nameplate turns ratio, whatever that is given on the nameplate of the transformer. Number of windings of the primary, number of windings of secondary will be specified at the nameplate of the transformer, outside the transformer. So that nameplate ratio is Ns by Np is equal to K. So that is fixed there. Now we are assuming that the transformer is an ideal one. Okay, so if it is an ideal one, what happens for a CT? IP is equal to KIS. So whatever the current that is here, can be multiplied with K, you get IP. So that you already know. Now ammeter reading is IS. Ammeter reads IS. It has to read IS. The primary current that we estimate, based on the assumption that the transformer CT is ideal, is K into IS. That is also known to you. But is that the actual current that is flowing in the primary? No, because IP is not equal to KIS. Why? Why is IP not equal to KIS in a practical transformer? That is because here you can see IS. When you multiply with K here, you will get IP dash. This is KIS. So your KIS is IP dash and it is not IP. Okay, and you know that IP minus IP dash is I0. IP minus IP dash, that is, or IP is equal to IP dash plus I0. So that difference is due to the magnetizing or the no load current that is flowing, I0. So from the phasor you can say that even the magnitudes of IP and IP dash is not equal. IP is slightly higher than IP dash because of the no load component. And you can say that IP dash by IS is K. Okay, IP dash by IS is K. Okay, and IP by IS is not equal to K. Remember, we used to say that IP by IS is equal to K, but now we say that IP by IS is not equal to K, rather IP dash by IS is equal to K. So automatically there is some error here. Okay, error, and that error is I0, and this particular error, since we are indicating it in terms of a ratio, this error is known as a ratio error of the CT. Okay, now again you can see that there will be some angle between IP and IP dash. Okay, due to this I0, there will be some angle between IP and IP dash. If you have an oscilloscope with you, you can measure these two. It will be showing the waveforms on the oscilloscope. So you will see that there will be a slight phase difference between IP and IP dash. That phase difference is known as a phase angle error in a CT. Okay, once more, ratio error is due to the difference in the ratio between the actual case and the practical case, and angle between IP and IP dash. IP dash is a reflected current towards the secondary side. So you'll have IS here. So once you have K multiplied with IS, you will be reaching here only. IS is flowing here. Okay, so the current that is flowing here will be IP dash and not IP. So IP will be comprising of I0 also. So the I0 is the error here, and that particular error is known as a ratio error, and the angle between IP and IP dash is termed as the phase error in CT. Next, we'll move to PT, where again you are using the same transformer, you are considering the same transformer as for PT also. Okay, now we are applying the source voltage, or some higher voltage is being provided at the input side, and you are trying to measure it using a low voltage voltmeter. Here also we are assuming that it's a practical PT with a nominal turns ratio NP by NS is equal to 1 by K. Okay, so just like we have established in the case of a current transformer, here also I am saying that NP by NS is equal to K. Now considering or assuming the transformer to be ideal, you can say that Vp is equal to Vs by K. Okay, Vp is equal to Vs by K. So once you multiply with the ratio, you will get the primary voltage. Now the voltmeter reading is Vs. You know, Vs is to be read by the voltmeter, so it reads Vs. It is a actual it is a true value that is to be read. Now the estimate of primary voltage, assuming the ideal nature of the transformer, is Vs by K. So this is the estimate value that we have already found out, or we have calculated. But practically, is that the value? It's not the value, because actual source voltage Vp is not equal to Vs by K. We think that Vp is equal to Vs by K, but practically Vp is not equal to Vs by K. What is the issue here? Vp is not equal to Vs by K. Vs by K is equal to Ep. That is the issue here, because when you shift this Vs towards this side with the multiplication factor, you will get Ep only. You reach here only. Then you have some drop here. You have to include this drop also. Then you will be reaching this Vp. Okay. So you cannot directly multiply Vs to get Vp with the transformation ratio, with that ratio. So you have to include this error also, error due to this winding resistances. Okay. Now Vs by K is equal to Vp, equal to Ep here. Now Vp minus Ep. So this is minus Ep. Vp minus Ep is the difference between these two voltages. So you can see, think something like this. Difference between this voltage, this side and this side, will be due to the drop here. Here you will have a voltage drop. That voltage drop is given by Ip into Rp plus jXp. So that is a voltage drop in the primary winding. Now you can say that your Vp by Vs is not equal to 1 by K. Okay, so obviously you can say that there is some error here, some ratio error, though you are saying that ideally it is correct, but practically it is not correct. Okay, so that difference between ideal value and the practical value is given by the voltage drop, so that error is known as a ratio error. Okay, again, angle between Vp and Ep is not equal to 0. In an ideal case, when we started our explanation, Vp and Ep were in phase, because we are not assuming the winding resistance or inductance to be in picture. So once we included that, we have a phase difference coming. Okay, some theta phase difference between Ep and minus Ep and Vp. So this is minus Ep, not Vp, minus Ep, Vp and minus Ep. So that particular phase error is known as, or difference is known as the phase error in CT. Okay, so hope you have got some idea regarding the entire working of the transformer as well as errors in CT and PT, that is ratio error and phase angle error. So thank you.